Mayor Kevin Brooks,
Brooks here.
Representative Mike Carter,
Carter here.
Mr. Calvin Clifton,
Clifton here.
Representative John Crawford, Deputy Commissioner Paula Davis,
Present.
Mayor Terry Frank,
Present.
County Clerk Mary Gaither,
She must be on mute. She said, I saw her lips move, but I didn't hear her.
I see her, Mayor Jill Holland,
Here.
County Executive Jeff Huffman, Representative Harold Love, Senator John Lundberg, Representative Susan Lynn,
I see her down there, but I don't know that she's listening to us.
see her,
She's present. We can see her.
Mayor Keith McDonald,
Here.
Representative Antonio Parkinson, Mr. Jeff Peach,
Here.
Senator Katrina Robinson, Mayor Larry Waters, Senator Bo Watson, Lawrence Fires, and for Justin Wilson, for Comptroller Justin Wilson,
Present.
Senator Ken Yeager, Senator Jeffrey Yarborough. Did I miss anyone? I have 15 present. We do have a quorum. I think I have everyone. We have 15 present and we do have a quorum.
Thank you, April. As we move on, I just want to confirm, Mr. Chairman, I believe I'm showing my screen and I believe it's the correct screen, but with two monitors, I always like to make sure. Are you seeing the meeting agenda?
Yes, I'm on a laptop. It's very small, so we got to try and enlarge it so I can read it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I've just had a text from a couple of people saying that they didn't get the agenda. I guess we've sent it out.
Yes, sir. We sent it out on Monday. But if they will go to our web page, if they did not receive it, if they go to our web page at tn.gov/TACIR, it's under the meeting link. It has the agenda and all the docket information. And I'm going to bring this up from another document so that I can expand it, make it more visible to everyone. Hold on just one second.
Mr. Chairman, if they'll look for their emails from Rabia, they'll find the agenda attached to that. And
I have found it, Mayor, but it appears for some reason on my laptop so small that I can't possibly read it. We're trying to figure out how to enlarge it now.
I see.
There we go.
There.
Yeah, I got it then.
All right.
Whatever
Very good.
one of you all did worked great. So thank
Great.
you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, anyone have any special matters before we get started? Comments, questions? All right. I hear some people talking in the background. I assume they're not talking to me. Okay. All right. Are we ready to get started then? Any other questions or comments? Okay. we're ready to review the minutes of the December meeting. Cliff, are you going to review those for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So we did send the minutes from the December meeting to the members as part of the document material, and the main items on that were the review of the draft broadband report, which we'll be receiving the final version of that today, and then also the approval of the small cell report, and of course the discussion of the TVA update involving the situation with Memphis Power, Light, Gas, and Water, and we'll be getting a little bit more information on that with the report today. We did not receive any comments back from the members on the minutes, so Mr. Chairman, I believe pending any objection, you could request approval of the minutes for the December 2020 meeting.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of 2020 of December 2020's meeting?
So moved.
Second
Do we have
by
a
Brooks.
second?
Second Brooks.
All right, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Let's go to tab 2, Commission Staff Update. Dr. Cliff, will you take care of that for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just one second here. In bringing up the agenda, I appear to have accidentally closed the staff update, so give me just 1 second.
No problem.
All right, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, so the commission update, the main update involves a staff report update where we've completed a periodic update of our basic education program report on equity and education spending. This is actually the 6th of these updates since we first looked at the effect of equity of the BEP program, and with what we have found is that despite early gains in education equity, the equalizing effect of state revenue has been too small to offset differences at the local level for at least the last 15 years. And we will be publishing our staff report on this later this month. And this is just, again, as a periodic staff update where we take a look at the effect of BEP funding on equity across the state. And then for a staff update, we have a fairly major milestone reached by our research manager, David Lewis, who has achieved 30 years of service to the state of Tennessee next month. Yeah, it's an impressive amount of service to the state. So if you could just join me in congratulating David Lewis for that accomplishment. And then also noted, I humbly note that I have myself reached 25 years of state service this month, and as I say in the memo, I couldn't imagine working with a better group of people. So thank you all very much. And
thank you. That's an amazing milestone to achieve, and just from having been in my position the last 3 months, it's been amazing how efficient and cooperative you guys are, and ladies have just done a great job. So thank you very much for all that you do, and congratulations on your milestone.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, let's go back to the agenda. Sorry, there we are. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is the approval of the broadband internet deployment availability and adoption report. But as we discussed prior to the meeting, what I would like to do is pause before we go into that and briefly hear from the Executive Director of the Tennessee Emergency Communications Board, Mr. Curtis Sutton, who has been kind enough to join us today to give an update on some technology issues under the purview of the TECB. And so with that,
thank you. And
without objection, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine with me. I'm sorry, I'd gotten a text that someone was having some technical issues, but we got that corrected.
thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate everything that this group does. I know that it's studied the Tennessee Emergency Communications Board a couple of times, and we certainly appreciate everything that that TACIR has done for us and recommendations that you've made in the past. But I wanted to give you an update on where we're at with our next generation 911 system in Tennessee. I believe that the Nashville explosion kind of brought that to the forefront when we had some outages at our 911 centers throughout the Middle Tennessee region. My board is the agency that has basically ran NG 911, next generation 911 for the state since around 2010. That is done presently through a contract that FNA has through their STS agency with AT&T. That contract is called NetTN. So the state Tennessee Emergency Communications Board does not have a direct contract with AT&T. We kind of ride off of that contract that STS has to do NG 911. That was the original plan. In 2018, the State Emergency Communications Board voted to migrate off of that NetTN system, which was a system that we created prior to any sort of national standard, and moved to AT&T's nationwide NG 911 platform, which was supposed to give us more resiliency and redundancy. And we are currently in the middle of that migration right now. We have about half of the 911 centers migrated over to that nationwide platform, NG 911 platform. We are also in 2019, the board authorized us to issue an RFP for a new network in 2023. That's when the NetTN contract will expire. We've done a lot of work on that RFP. It's actually drafted. We met with several potential vendors. We've canvassed our local 911 folks to get requirements for the new network, and that RFP is actually going through the approval process right now. It hasn't been issued. We really wanted to get it out last calendar year, and we thought we would have it out in December, but it's still with Central Procurement Office right now. We just had a meeting with them yesterday to answer some questions about insurance provisions, but that's kind of where we're at right now. We started out with the NetTN platform. We're migrating away from it to get some more benefits from a national product that AT&T has. And that's all still under the NetTN contract. But that contract will expire in 2023, and the state board has determined that it needs a direct contract with an NG 911 provider so that we have better accountability and we can kind of set the parameters of what that product looks like. So that's basically what I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our process, regarding the current network or our future plans for NG 911 throughout the state. But I certainly appreciate being invited here today to give you all an update on that network.
Curtis, thank you so much. Do we have questions or comments or any inquiries of Curtis while we have him here?
I see Mayor Brooks, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman Brooks.
Yeah, I don't have him up here. There, he just popped up. You're recognized, Mayor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Curtis, for stopping by this morning. Cleveland, Tennessee, as was probably every community on this call this morning, affected by the situation that happened Christmas Day in Nashville. And Curtis, as much as I am pleased to hear about the next generation and the plans going forward for our 911 and communication systems, I must tell you, as the mayor of a municipality that was crippled for more than 2 days, our 911 did not work. The first alert phone that AT&T so proudly has designated will work under every circumstance, in any circumstance, did not work for 2 days.
Correct.
I'm thankful to hear about what is happening in the future, but I am gravely concerned about what is happening right now to the systems and the redundancy that, in fact, although we pay a great deal of money for it to work, did not work. And so I'm grateful that you're here today. I'm thankful that Chairman Carter gave me a chance to voice this concern, because my community and my 911 director are definitely scratching their heads trying to figure out, God forbid this happens again. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, respond. We are also very concerned about what happened and why the NG91 system went down. Now, we don't have any real connection to FirstNet, the cell phone network that AT&T said would work under any circumstance, and it also failed after the bombing. But we are definitely concerned about the outages at our 911 centers. We will be having a meeting on February 3rd, and we have invited AT&T to that meeting. We scheduled one earlier, but there was still AT&T was still basically undergoing recovery efforts, and we didn't want to impede on that. We actually scheduled one for this past Monday, but we canceled that in order to give them some time to continue their recovery and restoration efforts. We didn't want to take anything away from that, but we will have a meeting on February 3rd, and I'm sure that some very difficult questions will be asked at that point in time.
If I can make a comment, I've had some communications with AT&T, and of course, they understand Mayor Brooks' concerns and all of our other mayors extraordinarily well, much better than before I talked with him. So I was glad the call came at that time. One of the things that we have to be cognizant of, however, is this is a criminal investigation, and it just continues to grow. And so some of the questions that I'm sure the mayor would ask would be problematic for their investigators, but there is a picture forming of what happened. And so just as soon as we can get to that and figure out what's happened, then we'll get it out, because we can't make donuts this way. We just can't get them out on time. So it's a bizarre situation, but they have expressed their profound cooperation and seem to be doing that in every way possible. So if you have any questions, I did talk that Mayor Brooks, you and I we may form some sort of committee for you to talk with them, gain some additional knowledge in that regard. Other questions or comments?
I'd just like to reiterate what Chairman Carter and Mayor Brooks has said. And I think the question that I keep getting from and comments from our first responders and police department is why there was not a system of redundancy in place. And why was the equipment not better protected than what it was? They had no idea that something like this could affect so much of the state of Tennessee. So, Curtis, if you would just pass on those questions, I would appreciate it. I'm sure all that's already been talked about. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. As soon as we can get, no, that's quite all right. As soon as we get caught up, I feel sure there'll be plenty of discussions with a lot of different groups, not just AT&T, because a lot of different groups are involved to figure out what's happening, how we can correct this going forward. It's quite quite surprising to be totally shut down in your system, and even my cell phone was out for 2.5 days. So something that we have to deal with, and we will. Other questions, comments? Mayor, do you have anything else? Mayor Brooks, anything else? Okay, we're good. All right. Cliff, where are we?
So, Mr. Chairman, the next thing on the agenda is tab 3, which is the final report for approval on broadband internet deployment, availability, and adoption. Dr. Matt Owen is going to do this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and make him a panelist. I mean, give him presentation screen capability here. If you'll give me just 1 second.
And Mr. Chair, this is State Rep Antonio Parkinson, and I apologize for the interruption, but Senator Robinson is trying to get on, and her link is not working also.
Okay. Cliff, can we have someone look to see about getting set?
Very good. And we also have, I know Chairman Watson is also was in as an attendee. So Rabia is working on getting those members
Okay.
access.
Good to hear from you and
Cliff,
Representative
if you
Antonio.
could, Cliff, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I've actually sent an email to Senator Watson on his email address to join the meeting using that link, since he is in the attendee list and I do not have the access to promote him right now. If he's hearing this, and he can please join using the link that is in his email address, would be the solution to the problem right now.
Very good. Could you also send that link, a link to Senator Robinson as well, please?
Yeah, maybe just text the both of them. That might be the quickest way.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
All right. Cliff, we're on tab 3. I think Dr. Owen's going to help us with that.
Yes, that's correct. And Matt, I believe you have control of the presentation now.
Yes, that's. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Yes. Can everybody see my screen? There should be. I should have just put the front page of the memo up on the screen. And can everybody hear me? Or hopefully they can hear me. if not, please let me know. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commission. Again, my name is Matt Owen, and as has been mentioned today, I will be presenting the final version of the Commission's update to its 2017 broadband report for your approval. And you can find a copy of the final report, its appendices, the 2-page summary of its findings and recommendations, and the associated memo within the materials for tab 3. The report has been prepared in response to the Tennessee Broadband Accessibility Act, that's Public Chapter 228, Acts of 2017, which not only enacted several policies recommended in the Commission's 2017 broadband report, but also directed the Commission to update its report by January 15th, 2021. The basic findings of the update remain unchanged from the draft that we presented in December. The overall body of evidence continues to support the conclusion that broadband remains a critical enabler, without which communities and individuals risk being left behind. And although increases in broadband access and adoption in the state are encouraging, gaps still remain. The good news is that Tennessee is well placed to address these gaps based on the public and private initiatives that are already in place, and lessons learned from the policies that were included in the 2017 Act can help inform any future changes or new policies to help maximize their effectiveness at improving broadband access and adoption. Since we presented the draft in December, we have updated and refined some of the information that is included in the report. This has included adding 2 sets of maps as appendices to the report. These maps have been produced at the development district level to make some of their details a little bit easier to see. And the first set of maps can be found in Appendix D, and this is on pages 91 through 99 of the report. These maps show broadband access as of December 2019 in each of the state's 9 development districts based on the available Federal Communications Commission data that was released this fall. The second set of maps.
Can I interrupt you just a minute? Since my friend Antonio is, I'm not sure he got on and is getting everything, and he's from Region 9, can we check with him and make sure that he's gaining this information?
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure that he is. I don't have his face on any screen.
I'm still not showing also. Rabia, have you got any update?
Cliff, this is
I sent him
Teresa.
an email and I have not received a response from him yet.
Okay,
He's showing
Teresa?
up under staff, but showing as muted.
Okay, hold on. Let me see.
He may be trying the phone call. Maybe that's why it's not working.
I just hate to go through Region 9. I know we have some members here from Region 9, and Mayor McDonald would fill him in, I'm sure, but I'd like to, if we could, not ignore him. If there's any possible way to technologically to bring him into it, I'd like to do that.
So any of the organizers should be able to unmute him if he's muted. Did you try that, Teresa?
Yes, I just tried that. I have a feeling he must be using the phone call in and we have no control. I think that happened in the last meeting with someone.
I see. Let's here.
Well, I guess we can
Dr.
just go on and come back with specific questions if we need
He-
to. We can jump to another.
I'm sorry, Representative Parkinson is on the call, but he's muted. He can't unmute himself.
Very good. Representative Parkinson, I'm not sure why that's happening, but we are also monitoring the chat and the question function. So if you do have a question and we're not able to resolve this mute mystery, I recommend sending it through that, and we'll continue to try to work on this. My apologies.
Check.
Oh, yes.
All right, Matthew, thank you for your patience. I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation.
No problem, and I do apologize. And also, if I will say, if there are other of the development districts that we wish to go through, these maps are available, and I'm certainly willing to stop and go through them. I will say the second set of maps that I mentioned are included in Appendix E, and that appendix can be found on pages 101 through 109 of the report. And again, these are made at the development district level. These maps show project areas that have received funding through select state and federal programs, broadband programs.
The invitation that I have in my
We have
email.
also updated our staff estimate of the number of homes and businesses, or excuse me, the number of homes, not businesses, the number of homes remaining in census blocks where no provider reported broadband as of December 2019 that are unlikely to receive service through existing state or federally funded projects to account for the results of phase 1 of the FCC's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund auction. And this auction announced its winners in December of 2020. To see the updated estimates, I would direct your attention specifically to the table on page 40, which I should be sharing on my screen right now. As a reminder, because of the lag in the FCC data and the lack of available information on the exact boundaries of each project area that has been awarded funding through federal programs, TACIR staff are unable to calculate the exact number of housing units that are remaining after accounting for projects that have received funding through state and federal programs. With that in mind, the top row of this table remains unchanged from the draft report. This row shows the number of housing units that are located in census blocks where no provider reported offering 25/3 service as of December 2019. And we've also included on the three most right-hand columns the number, estimated cost to serve those locations. Estimates in the bottom row of the table represent our attempt to account for coverage expansions resulting from projects already awarded state or federal funding. After incorporating the results of the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund auction into those calculations, TACIR staff estimate that there are at least 36,920 housing units located in census blocks where no provider reported 25/3 service as of December 2019 that won't receive broadband from existing state or federally funded projects. And again, we've updated the estimates of the cost to serve those remaining homes as well, based on the cost per location for projects in the first 3 rounds of the state's broadband grant program. Finally, based on feedback from members at the December meeting, we have added a recommendation for the state to obtain improved broadband coverage data from providers and to develop its own broadband maps. This recommendation, which I've pulled up on the screen, can be found on page 10 of the report in the summary and recommendation section. And it can be also found on page 2 in the memo. The report notes that the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development says that it currently lacks the resources needed to verify annually on a statewide basis the extent to which all homes and businesses in areas served by the FCC actually have broadband access. The report further notes that although $98 million for the FCC to improve the precision of federal coverage data was included in the Consolidated Appropriations Act that Congress passed in December 2020, other states have already taken matters into their own hands. For example, Georgia, having reached agreements with broadband providers to report address level coverage data to it for every home and business in the state, has developed its own broadband map, which it updates annually. As we discussed at our December meeting, Georgia's map shows that there are at least 255,000 of the state's homes and businesses that are located in census blocks that are listed as fully served by the FCC that are in fact in areas that are at best only partially served. Georgia has also used this data to help its Department of Education determine the number of K-12 students in the state living in areas without broadband access. Importantly, safeguards included in Georgia's law establishing its mapping initiative prevent data shared by providers from being released in a format that would reveal business-sensitive information. This has been critical for facilitating providers' participation in the program, according to staff with Georgia's mapping initiative, who we interviewed in December. Because of the benefit to state and local officials of having more precise data for determining broadband access and assessing Tennessee's progress at filling coverage gaps without having to rely on data released by the FCC, even if that federal data is improved, the report recommends that ECD should develop its own broadband coverage maps for the state, updated annually based on address level data reported to it under agreements with broadband providers. As is done in Georgia, to encourage providers to report this data, the General Assembly should mandate that data reported to ECD for the state's broadband coverage map is protected and cannot be publicly shared in ways that would reveal business-sensitive information. In addition to this new recommendation, the 4 recommendations that were included in the draft report remain unchanged. These recommendations can be found on page 3 in the memo, and I will describe each of them. And as I do so, I will point you toward the page that they can be found in the report itself. The report makes 1 recommendation related to broadband adoption, which can be found on page 7. Because of the role that libraries and schools play in their communities and the importance of tailoring broadband adoption efforts to meet local needs, the report recommends that the state and local governments should continue to identify opportunities to increase funding for libraries and schools to assist their efforts to facilitate broadband adoption and short-term access in their communities, including support for digital literacy classes, devices, hotspots, and other efforts to make broadband available to those who either don't have or cannot afford service. For libraries in particular, the state should continue to provide funding for broadband adoption efforts through the state's broadband grant program. The other 3 recommendations included in the report are all related to broadband access. The first of these can be found on page 9 in the report. The report finds that because of the challenging economics of providing broadband in some unserved areas, filling the remaining coverage gaps will likely require a combination of public and private sector resources. As a result, the report recommends that the state should keep supporting efforts to expand broadband access in Tennessee by continuing to fund the broadband grant program, and could consider increasing its annual appropriations to accelerate broadband expansion to more unserved areas. The second of these access-related recommendations can be found on page 11. In its discussion of other potential government incentives for broadband providers, the report emphasizes that requirements included in the state grant program help protect the state if projects fail and cap the state's share of project costs. The report notes that while the exact structure of these requirements might not be transferable to every state or local incentive, the goal of reducing risk to taxpayers is, and because of this, the report recommends that the state and local governments should consider tying any new incentives for broadband providers directly to coverage expansions, while limiting the overall share of project costs that those incentives pay for. The final recommendation, which is found on page 13, the report notes that electric cooperatives and municipal electric systems remain subject to territorial restrictions that, with limited exceptions, prevent them from providing broadband outside of their electric service areas. Multiple bills in recent legislative sessions would have eliminated or eased these restrictions, but the potentially high cost of building broadband networks introduces risks to which electric cooperatives and municipal utilities are not immune. Because of the risks involved in broadband projects generally, and specifically the risks for electric ratepayers, the report recommends that if the state were to eliminate or ease existing territorial restrictions on electric cooperatives and municipal electric systems, it should consider ways it can protect electric ratepayers, for example, by prohibiting these cooperatives and utilities from pledging, loaning, or otherwise using electric system assets or revenues to finance broadband projects outside their electric service areas. That concludes my presentation. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have before seeking your approval of the final report.
All right. Mayor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman Carter. And let me begin by saying, Dr. Owen, great work. Thank you for the revisions from when we were together last in December. I think if you look at the ECD provided map of the Bradley Polk Hamilton area that is found in our appendices, that very map is contradicted by a map that was distributed this week by the Thrive Regional Committee that has proven that Bradley County has less, 26% of Bradley County has absolutely no coverage. So I think diving down and adding these better maps like Georgia did is going to be a very important part of this discussion. So I would like to thank you, Dr. Owen, for adding that and for the rest of the work. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to bring up one additional comment.
Of course.
If you look at both the 3-page memo that is on our screen now, and if you look at the multiple page full report, the memo on our screen uses the word should 7 times. In the full report from Dr. Owen, the word should is used 18 times in recommendations from TACIR's commission to the General Assembly. There is one sentence, however, on this page 3. It's the last one that Dr. Owen just read as far as options. It's the electric cooperative municipal electric systems paragraph that is actually on our screen. And if you see where it is in bold, if the words, if the state were to eliminate, if we added the word should, like we have done 18 other times in the report, and changed it to the state should consider eliminating or easing the ease of existing territorial restrictions on electric cooperatives and multiple municipal electric systems, giving that, which we have already done 18 other times, recommendation that it should be done, would be the only opportunity for discussion I would like to bring up, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Questions, comments, or a motion to add that amendment to this study? Is there a motion to add?
I'll move. Vickers.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking for you.
Can
Yeah,
I-
there you are.
can
Got
I
it.
second my own
Motion by
motion?
Mayor Vickers. Is there a second?
Second.
Anderson,
Okay.
second.
Anderson, second. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any of those opposed say nay. Okay, I was very careful to make sure, as by my reading here, that passed unanimously. If anyone heard something I didn't, please speak up. All right, that amendment passes unanimously. Thank you, Mayor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman Carter.
And Matthew, will you make that amendment for us?
Yes. So, and to make sure that I understand, Mayor Brooks, I want to make sure that Vice Mayor Brooks, I want to make sure I get your language correct, and we can make sure that we get this specifically worded the way that you described it. I was trying to write down, but I don't know that I captured it all correctly. So, as I understood it, the motion would be to change the recommendation. That's the last recommendation on the memo on page 3. And this would be the recommendation that can be found on page 13 in the report itself. And so the recommendation would be changed to the state should consider or should eliminate or ease existing territorial restrictions on electric cooperatives and municipal electric systems. And so that would be then changed to and should consider ways it can protect electric ratepayers. For example, by prohibiting these cooperatives and utilities from pledging, loaning, or otherwise using electric system assets or revenues to finance broadband projects outside their electric service areas. Did I capture that correctly, or?
Yes, you did, Dr. Owen. Thank you. And I did use the words should consider. Thank you.
Okay, so all right, so both right. So the state should consider eliminating or easing existing territorial restrictions. All right.
And I have
requirement. Let me interrupt. Let me make sure. Mayor Brooks, you're not saying they're required to eliminate. You're saying they should consider.
That is correct.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, just if I may interject real quick here, and we are happy to obviously make that change as directed by the commission. It's an administrative question on procedurally here. When for the approval of the reports, it does require, since we're meeting remotely, a roll call vote. I'm uncertain as whether the amendment to change the recommendation also requires a roll call vote, or whether the vote we just took is sufficient.
Very difficult.
Why don't we err on the side of caution and take a roll call?
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Can we have a roll call on the amendment sponsored by?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor Brooks.
Mayor Rogers Anderson, how do you vote?
Anderson votes aye.
Anderson votes aye. Assistant Commissioner Arnold, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold votes aye. Mayor Vickers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Vickers votes aye. Mayor Buddy Bradshaw, how do you vote? Okay. Mayor Brooks, how do you vote?
Brooks votes aye.
Mayor Brooks votes aye. Chairman Carter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman Carter votes aye. Mr. Clifton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Clifton votes aye. Representative Crawford, how do you vote? Deputy Commissioner Paula Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis votes aye. Mayor Terry Frank, how do you vote?
Frank, aye.
Mayor Frank votes aye. County Clerk Gaither, how do you vote?
You're muted still, Mary.
She was trying to find support. Otherwise, it doesn't
I see a thumbs up. Thank you, County Clerk Gaither. Mayor Holland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Holland votes aye. County Executive Huffman, how do you vote?
Aye.
County Executive Huffman votes aye. Senator Lundberg, how do you vote? Representative Susan Lynn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Lynn votes aye. Representative Love, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Love votes aye. Mayor McDonald, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor McDonald votes aye. Representative Parkinson, how do you vote? He's there. Mr. Peach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Peach votes aye. Senator Robinson, how do you vote? Mayor Waters, how do you vote? Senator Bo Watson, how do you vote?
Ma'am, he cannot unmute for some reason. This is Chairman Carter. He's asked me to vote aye for him to voice his aye on the amendment.
Is that for Senator Watson or Representative?
Senator Watson, yes.
Okay. Senator Ken Yeager, how do you vote? Senator Jeff Yarborough, how do you vote?
Yarborough votes aye.
And ma'am, this is Terry Frank. Mayor Bradshaw says he is muted by the organizer. He was trying to vote, but if you can assist him, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We'll take care of him.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you.
Oh, great. Mayor Bradshaw votes aye. I have 18 votes for aye. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right. Next matter on the agenda, Cliff.
Well, that was that we still actually have to now take the, we need a motion, a second, and an approval of the report before we move on to item 4, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a motion and a second to report this out as our final?
Motion to approve as amended, Brooks.
All right.
Second.
Do we have a second?
I
Vickers
heard a
was,
second, but I'm not sure who it was from.
Mayor Frank.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Frank.
Motion by Brooks, second by Mayor Franks, if I understood that correctly. Now we're voting on the motion and it's entirely as amended. Is that correct, Cliff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Does it need to be roll call?
Yeah, I'm afraid so, Mr. Chairman.
All right. By roll call, ma'am, please.
Yes, sir. Mayor Rogers Anderson, how do you vote?
Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Sammy Arnold, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Arnold votes, I'm sorry, Commissioner Arnold votes aye, and Mayor Anderson votes aye. Mayor Bickers, how do you vote?
aye.
Mayor Bickers votes aye. Mayor Bradshaw, how do you vote?
Bradshaw votes aye.
Mayor Bradshaw votes aye. Mayor Brooks, how do you vote?
Brooks votes aye.
Mayor Brooks votes aye. Chairman Carter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman Carter votes aye. Mr. Clifton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Clifton votes aye. Representative Crawford, how do you vote? Commissioner Davis, how do you vote? Paula Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis votes aye. Mayor Terry Frank, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Frank votes aye. County Clerk Gaither, how do you vote? I think the thumbs up. County Clerk Gaither, thumbs up, aye. Mayor Holland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Holland votes aye. County Executive Huffman, how do you vote?
Aye.
County Executive Huffman votes aye. Representative Love, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Love votes aye. Senator Lundberg, how do you vote? Representative Susan Lynn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Lynn votes aye. Mayor McDonald, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor McDonald votes aye. Representative Parkinson, how do you vote? Mr. Peach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Peach votes aye. Senator Katrina Robinson, how do you vote?
April, so she's still not connected as a panelist. I believe we sent her a link, but she has responded that she votes aye in the question feature, and the senator also responded that she voted aye for the amendment. So if we could just update that, thank you.
Yes, sir. Senator Robinson votes aye. Mayor Larry Waters, how do you vote? Senator Bo Watson, how do you vote?
He votes aye.
Senator Watson votes aye. Senator Yeager, how do you vote? Senator Yarborough, how do you vote?
Aye.
I have 19 ayes.
All right, motion passes.
And Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the next tab, an oversight on my part. I did not read the statement of necessity at the beginning of the meeting, and with your approval, I'd like to go ahead and read that now.
Please do.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated section 4-10-105A, the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations is to hold meetings quarterly and at such other times as it deems necessary. To meet this requirement, the commission scheduled a meeting for today, January 7th, 2021. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic and related safety protocols, it was determined that a physical quorum of the members could not assemble in person. Therefore, the commission chose to meet via teleconference. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I believe we're ready to move to tab 4.
Yes, tab 4. Thank you, Cliff. And thank you, Matthew. It's a great report. Thank you for your time and efforts on that.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, tab 4. Cliff, will you update us on that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So tab 4 is our annual infrastructure needs inventory report, and Senior Research Associate Rabia Chaudhry, who is our lead researcher on this project, will be providing that update very remotely. So Rabia.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. Before I begin, I want to make sure that you all can see my screen. There is a figure 1 visible to everyone. So can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sounds good.
Is it the umbrella?
My name
All
is
we're seeing
Rabia
are the
Chaudhry.
umbrellas. There it goes.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. My name is Rabia Chaudhry. Today, I will present a brief overview of the Public Infrastructure Needs Inventory. The report is available for your approval under tab 4. This year's report is consistent with previous year's reports and also follows the same format. However, this year, the report is based on a 5-year period from July 2019 to June 2024. I only want to draw your attention to a few points of interest in this year's report. I would like to begin by highlighting that this year, the total estimated inflation-adjusted cost per capita of all needed public infrastructure improvements in Tennessee increased for the 5th consecutive year, which is visible in Figure 1. In this year's inventory, state and local officials report a total need of $58.6 billion, which is about $3.8 billion more than last year's, as you can see in Table 1. This year, the categories most responsible for the reported increase in total estimated cost are transportation and utilities and general government. Public infrastructure needs for transportation, utilities, and general government accounts for 96.2% of the increase in this year's inventory. Transportation and utilities is and always has been the largest category of infrastructure in the inventory, based on total estimated cost. It increased by $3 billion and now totals $33 billion. Public buildings inventory increased by $586 million and now totals $1.3 billion, mainly because of large increases to renovation projects on state buildings. The education needs remained about the same as documented in the last annual report. Increases in needed infrastructure improvements on college campuses were offset by the completion of new school space and a decrease in the needed improvement in existing public schools. Moreover, increases in infrastructure needs in the health, safety, and welfare category is mostly because of the increase in need for upgrades to water and wastewater infrastructure and the need for fire protection infrastructure. The estimated cost of water and wastewater facilities has increased by $238 million, and the cost of fire protection facilities has increased by $18 million. The need for projects that support recreation and cultural assets continues to increase. This year, the estimated cost of recreational projects has increased by $215 million. The estimated cost of community development projects has increased by $23 million, and the estimated cost of libraries, museums, and historic site projects has decreased by $124 million. The final point of interest I want to highlight is that, as in previous year's reports, more than two-thirds of the needs in this year's inventory are not funded. However, as projects move forward from the conceptual stage to the planning and design stages, more funding will become available for them. In the current times, it is natural to ask if the pandemic will have any impact on state and local infrastructure needs. Because of the pandemic, some types of needs will increase, while others may decrease, and the net effect is not clear at this time. However, it is likely that the pandemic will lead to a potential tax revenue losses and higher public health expenditure. So with the pandemic, it will be even more challenging for the government officials to match limited funds with the seemingly unlimited needs, which is a daunting task even under normal circumstances. Additionally, strategies put in place to mitigate the virus may result in long-lasting social changes that could affect public infrastructure needs, such as potentially reducing the need to repair or expand public roads, or possibly increasing the need for technology infrastructure at public schools as students shift from in-person learning to remote learning. The impact is not reflected in this year's report because the information presented in this year's report is till July 2019, which is well before the pandemic. We expect that the impact of the pandemic will be reflected to some extent in next year's report, which will contain information till July 2020. But the full impact will not be known until the report containing July 2021 data is available. TACIR staff is also conducting a new special project to compare and contrast the effect of past social and economic disruptions with COVID-19 related disruptions. We plan on doing this by analyzing historical needs of infrastructure needs and spending to determine their effect on public infrastructure development or priorities. This was all a brief overview of the needs reported in the current inventory report. If you want to see how your county is performing, please look at the county summaries on page 21, Appendix D and Appendix E at the back of tab 4. Appendix D contains information on projects types and development stage. And Appendix E contains information related to school districts. Lastly, I would like to update you on the current status of the inventory for next year. The July 2020 inventory is currently being surveyed by the development districts. We would like to thank the development districts for all their hard work in collecting this information. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them before I seek approval for the July 2019 infrastructure report.
All right, questions or comments? If there are none, are we ready to take a vote?
I believe we need a motion and a second, and then yes, Mr. Chairman.
I don't see a motion or a second.
I would move to accept it.
Okay.
McDonald.
Motion by Mayor McDonald, second by Mayor Brooks. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think
We
you
have
have
to do
to
that by
roll
roll.
call again.
We have to do this by roll again? All
Yes,
right,
sir,
then
Mr.
let's do it by roll call.
Mayor Rogers Anderson, how do you vote?
Anderson, aye.
Mayor Anderson votes aye. Commissioner Arnold, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold votes aye. Mayor Bickers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Bickers votes aye. Mayor Bradshaw, how do you vote?
Bradshaw votes aye.
Mayor Bradshaw votes aye. Mayor Brooks, how do you vote?
Brooks votes aye.
Mayor Brooks votes aye. Representative Carter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Carter votes aye. Mr. Clifton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Clifton votes aye. Representative Crawford, how do you vote? Commissioner Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis votes aye. Mayor Frank, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Frank votes aye. County Clerk Gaither, how do you vote? Thumbs
That
up.
was an aye.
Clerk Gaither votes aye. Mayor Holland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Holland votes aye. County Executive Huffman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Executive Huffman votes aye. Senator Lundberg, how do you vote? Representative Susan Lynn, how do you vote? Let's see here. Representative Harold Love, how do you vote? Mayor McDonald, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mayor McDonald votes aye. Representative Parkinson, how do you vote? Mr. Peach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Peach votes aye. Senator Robinson, how do you vote? Mayor Larry Waters, how do you vote? Senator Watson, how do you vote?
Senator Watson has asked me, Chairman Carter, to vote on his behalf as aye.
Senator Watson votes aye. Senator Yeager, how do you vote? Senator Yarborough, how do you vote?
Aye.
17 ayes. We have 17 ayes, Chairman Carter.
All right, motion passes. What's next, Cliff?
Mr. Chairman, the final report for approval on the agenda today is our annual update on Tennessee Valley Authority payments in lieu of tax dollars. Senior Research Associate Bob Morio will be presenting this report for approval. As a reminder, Bob also gave the commission a fairly detailed update on the situation with Memphis Power, Light, and Gas at the last meeting, and we'll give a little bit more cursory overview of that today as he goes over the full report.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Executive Director Lippert. We have 16 instead of 17. I said 17 in error.
Very good. Thank you, April. So, Mr. Chairman, with your approval, we'll go ahead and proceed to that tab with Senior Research Associate Morio. It should be showing on everyone's screen currently.
Okay. There, I've got it. All right. Bob, are you ready?
There we go. Not being muted would help. All right. Well, thank
You're
you, Chairman.
recognized, Bob.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Morio. Today I am presenting for your approval the Commission's annual report of the Tennessee Valley Authority payments in lieu of taxes as directed by Public Chapter 1035, Acts of 2010, and issues affecting those payments and their distribution to the state of Tennessee and our local governments. And this report is noted as tab 5 in the agenda. So unfortunately, following 3 years of increases, TVA's overall pilot to the 8 states in which it owns property has decreased by $52 million for federal fiscal year 2020-21. Milder weather, credits paid that TVA paid to local power companies that have agreed to 20-year contracts, and mainly most reduced demand for electricity resulting from business closures and temporary shutdowns in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. That all together caused TVA's revenue from power sales, which determines the pilot, to fall by $1 billion for the B in federal fiscal year 2019-20. So Tennessee's share of the total available pilot did increase, however. So I'll go to page 7 of the report in table 1. See where Tennessee's share is going up. Tennessee received almost 68% of the available pilot. Payments to Tennessee in federal fiscal year 2020-21 are estimated to decrease by $33 million to a total of $339.6 million. And on the next page of the report, we see that on the state's fiscal year basis, the 2020-21 allocations would decrease by $7.5 million for all counties, $3.2 million across among all cities, and by $11.6 million for the state agencies. So payments to each county and city are detailed in the appendices at the end of the report. You'll see those for multiple years. TVA's revenue forecast looking forward also indicates that these lower payments are expected to continue in the next fiscal year as well. While the Commission has expressed no immediate needs for legislative changes, the report calls attention to 2 developing issues which were discussed in detail during the Commission's December meeting that may affect pilot payments in the future. On page 17, close your eyes while I'm scrolling, Melissa. The report explains that 142 of the 153 local power companies TVA serves have signed new 20-year partnership agreements, which include a 3.1% base rate credit that reduces the revenue TVA uses to determine the pilot. These credits amounted to $163 million in TVA's fiscal year 2019-20, which did save the local power companies that money, but it translates to about $5.5 million less for our share of the pilot. And these credits are to power companies in all the states. So as more companies sign these agreements, the remaining 11, that total credit amount would increase, further reducing the pilot, with the state seeing perhaps another $2 million decrease in all if all 153 LPCs were receiving those credits. However, beginning on page 19, and as we discussed previously, the report notes that at least one Tennessee power company may not be signing that new agreement anytime soon. Memphis Light, Gas and Water, MLGW, is TVA's largest customer. And as we discussed in December, it is studying whether to leave the TVA system. If it chooses to do so, a decision that may take 12 to 18 months, the resulting loss of revenue would reduce the pilot significantly. And moreover, local governments in the MLGW service area in Shelby County would no longer receive pilot funds through the state's allocation formula. But because there is a 5-year termination period before MLGW's contract can end, if it chooses to do so, any possible effect on the pilot wouldn't begin until 2028 or 29. And I was just checking any recent news that's happened between the December meeting and the report going out. And there was just a December 28th article that Memphis commercial appeal that MLGW was still carefully considering how it might be able to proceed, but it's still in a holding pattern. They're concerned that if they were to do something different than go with the contractor, the consultant they had chosen, they might be subject to some legal action. So they're still on hold, and we'll be keeping an eye on it as it goes forward into this year. Page 20 and 21, after that, explains existing provisions in Tennessee law, notably Public Chapter 1035, Acts 2010, which falls under Tennessee Code Annotated 67-4-3101. Those existing provisions could recoup some lost pilot money. It says that entities other than TVA selling wholesale electric power to local power companies are required to make pilots to the state, but that actual amount would ultimately depend on how MLGW and those new suppliers structure their contracts, where MLGW locates any new power plants, and who owns them. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time, but otherwise, thank you all, and I would ask for approval of the report.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I move.
Do we have a second? I think I saw Representative Lynn, Chairman Lynn, give a second. Aye. All right.
So that was that Mayor Holland that moved the report?
Yes.
That's what I
Yes.
had. Yes. Mayor Harlan, Chairman Lynn.
Okay.
All right, can we call the roll? Is that necessary?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's call the roll.
Mayor Anderson, how do you vote?
Anderson, aye.
Anderson votes aye. Commissioner Arnold, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold votes aye. Mayor Bickers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Bickers votes aye. Mayor Bradshaw, how do you vote?
Bradshaw votes aye.
Mayor Bradshaw votes aye. Mayor Brooks, how do you vote?
Votes aye.
Mayor Brooks votes aye. Representative Carter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Carter votes aye. Mr. Clifton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Clifton votes aye. Representative Crawford, how do you vote? Commissioner Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis votes aye. Mayor Frank, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Frank votes aye. Clerk Gaither, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk Gaither votes aye. Mayor Holland, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Holland votes aye. Executive Huffman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Executive Huffman votes aye. Representative Love, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Love votes aye. Senator Lundberg, how do you vote? Representative Lynn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Representative Lynn votes aye. Mayor McDonald, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor McDonald votes aye. Representative Parkinson, how do you vote? Representative Parkinson, okay. Mr. Peach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Peach votes aye. Senator Robinson, how do you vote? Mayor Larry Waters, how do you vote? Senator Watson, how do you vote?
He has left the meeting for just a moment to deal with something, and I don't know how he votes.
Okay. Senator Yeager, how do you vote? Senator Yarborough, how do you vote?
Aye.
Senator Yarborough votes aye. 17 ayes.
I've just got a text back from Representative Watson that he is back and wanted me to vote aye for him. So if you would, if we can
Okay.
change that, I would appreciate it to an aye for Watson on that vote.
Yes, sir. I have Senator Watson down as aye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Chairman, we do have and also we have a note in the chat that Senator Robinson also votes aye, so that would make it 19 ayes, Mr. Chairman. And we have a question in the chat from Executive Huffman on asking about whether there's been any long-range studies on how substantial electric vehicle usage going forward will impact demand on the TVA system. And Bob has responded to that he's read something on that, and it's a topic that we're going to need to look into more detail going forward.
All right.
Yeah, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, this is Jeff Huffman, just respond a
Please,
little bit.
Mayor.
The reason I ask that is because going forward, it's clear based on some studies that UT CBER has done that there's going to be a dramatic increase in the number of electric vehicles going forward. Looks like from this point forward. And it sort of begs the question from a local government standpoint, and that is our gasoline and special petroleum and diesel fuel, well, maybe not diesel fuel, but gasoline tax decreases over time because of the increase in electric vehicle usage, that revenue that comes to local governments and to the state basically funds the transportation system, particularly the maintenance of the transportation system on the local government side and the state side. Would there be any increase in electricity payments that could maybe make up some of the gap in that decrease in internal combustion engine fuel taxes? And so I was just interested in knowing if anything had been looked at anywhere regarding how an increase in electric vehicle usage across the state or the Mid-South, how that might increase not only TVA in lieu of payments, but other tax payments as well.
Cliff, do you have an answer for us on that? Or Bob?
I'll defer to Bob on that. I'm not aware of anything, but again, it's certainly a topic I think we need to delve into deeper. Bob?
Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead. Trying to remember what I maybe read a little bit of briefly, but just it hasn't seemed like electric vehicle usage in the near future would increase electricity demand to such a great amount that it would really start having a huge effect in the near future. I think they sort of kind of couple energy efficiency and some things where demand is going down, and then demand from electric vehicles would start to go up, canceling each other out to some extent. So, at least like their projected TVA's projected revenue for the next 3 years that's in their budget and their presentation to the board this year really just show revenue just stepping back up incrementally, kind of to where it was, a couple years ago. So, and I think from the state's perspective, the gas tax issue, is kind of separate from the scope of what we look at in this report, being, the pilot payments and everything. But it is something that a number of states have looked at as far as funding transportation through means other than fuel taxes if we're not using gasoline so much anymore. So,
Mr. Chairman, this is Jeff Huffman again. Could I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's regarding the TVA in lieu of taxes, and it's also regarding Memphis, and if they decide that they're going to do something else other than use TVA as the source of power there. Does it still take 5 years to change power sources if you're a municipal electric system? In other words, if I'm a local government and I've got TVA in lieu of payments that are going into the debt service fund to pay back principal and interest on school construction, for example, I'm interested in knowing how much time I've got. If that's going to be reduced, how much time do I have to make that revenue stream up to hold me harmless?
Yeah, Mayor, Mr. Huffman. So it would be, if the decision is made, so let's say MLGW is getting bids, considering those bids.
Could we hold on just a minute? Mayor McDonald is flashing. He has a response to that.
No, I don't necessarily have a response, Chairman. When he finishes answering, I would like to make a comment. So.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself, Bob. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's okay. So however long it takes, if MLGW did decide to move forward, they would still be buying all their power from TVA through that 5-year period until the end of that contract, at which point they would start getting power from their new suppliers. And so because the pilot is determined based on the previous fiscal year's revenue, let's say that change coincides right at the end of TVA's fiscal year 2027-28. That whole fiscal year they would have been receiving revenue from Memphis, and then so federal fiscal year 2028-29 in this case would be a full year where they're not receiving revenue from Memphis. And then so that year of revenue would determine the pilot for the following year, 2029-30. That would be the year that the pilot drops off. So you have the time until they make a decision. You have a 5-year window where they're still buying power from TVA. And then you have the year lag between TVA revenue and determining how much the pilot will be.
Thank you, Bob.
Mayor McDonald.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to support the questions that Mayor Huffman brings up. I don't want us to leave too much of a mess for those that come after us. The fact is, the projections are that electric cars will in fact increase. And I think we should be looking at, I don't know, Bob, I don't.
And his style is really, really good at, hurting.
Somebody's got an open mic. So I would like, Bob, whether it's in this report with TVA and Cliff, we do need to be looking at solutions. We talked about infrastructure earlier, and we all know that there's far too little money for infrastructure, and that is going to be exacerbated in the use of electric cars if we don't address that and how those kind of vehicles will help with the infrastructure needs, as well as the overall impact to the state and specifically, of course, to communities in Shelby County. If MLGW decides to go, I realize he's saying it's not for 5 years, but then what? And I don't want to be left with our drawers down because we didn't take the time to look at this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It looks like Mayor Brooks has a comment, Mr. Chairman.
I think it's, oh, there he is.
There you go.
His screen
It frozen momentarily there, yes. Mayor Brooks had a comment, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
Director
go
Lipp.
ahead, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I was going to say, I think I can read his lips and he's telling me to go ahead.
I got him muted somehow.
Okay. I'm going to put on my old Finance Committee hat. I see Chair Lady Lynn is still with us. And this report talks about the diminishing, for the first time in a number of years, payments back to the state. So I think that there are going to be future financial impacts, but in agreement with both Mr. Huffman and Mayor McDonald, the electric car, as a new mayor, I'm getting lots and lots of questions as to why we don't have more opportunities for plug-ins, for grant money, for electric outlets. We've contacted the electric cooperatives, we've contacted TVA, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of conversation about what is rapidly moving to many electric vehicles. We've seen what we believe is a 20% increase in the purchasing of electric vehicles in Bradley County just in the last 2 years of me being elected. So I do think that this conversation is pertinent and tangent to this report, and I'm thankful that both Mr. Huffman and Mr. McDonald brought that up, and I would concur that we need to continue that conversation because it doesn't seem like very many people are talking about it at all, which I believe TACIR could help with that greatly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
If I could add something, Mayor Bickers, Mr. Chairman, and then if I could add something as well.
All right, Mayor Bickers, he's not on my screen, but there he is. Thank you, Mayor Bickers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Executive Huffman really touched on an issue that we should all, as people looking at how we're going to leave our governments to those that come behind us, the impact of electric vehicles is going to be significant on many of our shared resources, the shared dollars from the state, as he mentioned. And it may be that they're going to have impacts in other ways. I'm just wondering, given if we want to be proactive in trying to look ahead as to how best our governments should handle this, if that's not something that this commission ought to be doing a study of. I know they're busy and you hate to recommend new work, but otherwise we're gonna wake up one day and see that our shared resources have diminished. We've got, we're going to have to rethink how we pay for transportation needs. Do those transportation needs change and include electrification stations, such as Mayor Brooks mentioned? I think that's something, if we wanted to be proactive, maybe we as a commission ought to say, let's go ahead and take a look at this. It's not anything that we've got a short term, that we've got time pressure to do. In many ways, it's like the broadband. We can take some time and do it right. I'm just wondering if there's not some thought that that's something that as we move forward, the commission ought to be looking at specifically, as opposed to just a conversation that we have as different matters come before us.
Other questions or comments?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So I actually heading in the same direction, I believe, as Mayor Bickers here. What I was going to suggest is that we definitely need to take a deeper look at this for next year's TVA report, and I believe part of that is going to be some additional conversations with other agencies, including, for example, the Tennessee Department of Transportation, to see what research and analysis is already out there. I would suggest that as we look at that, if it does not appear that anyone else is taking a thorough enough look at this, and at the intergovernmental and fiscal related components of it, that we could at our next meeting present a research plan for a commission study on the topic. As we look into it deeper, there already is some work on that. At the very least, we can share an update on that, and then also include it as we did with our update on Memphis Light and Gas and Water this year, an update on it heading up to next year's TVA report.
Sammy, did I notice you trying to get my attention? Did I miss you? Commissioner, okay, all right. Anyone else have questions, comments? All right, okay.
Cliff, I'm sending
Cliff?
the screen or presenter back to you.
Thank you, Bob.
All right. Cliff, any other questions or comments you have?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make sure that the members are okay with that approach. I don't want to feel that we're being dismissive of Mayor Bicker's suggestion and Mayor Huffman's concern.
And then come over the next few years is going to be difficult, and we need to accept that.
Absolutely.
No way to get around it. Other questions or comments of the commissioners? No one?
You know, Mr. Chairman, I would support what Cliff has suggested, that at least if there's a consensus of those here today, that we at least look at a proposed study of this issue at our next meeting. I don't know if we have to vote to do that, or if that's something that the executive director can do on his own. But I do think, as you mentioned, this is going to have a significant impact on state and local government, and it's something that we at least ought to consider taking a look at. So I would support that if that's the view of the commission, that we at least look at a suggested study at our next meeting. I need to do that.
Cliff, give me a little guidance on that, please.
Mr. Chairman, my reading of the bylaws is that would not require a motion or second. We can proceed on our own and look into it, and if we think it warrants it, develop a draft research plan. Now, if we actually decide to pursue a study, that will take a vote. But asking us to look into the possibility of study does not take a vote. And then. And like I said, even if we decide that there's additional information already out there and we don't need to do a study ourselves, at the very least, we'll provide an update to the commission members.
All right. Mayor Bickers, would it be okay if we have a report from Cliff back at our next meeting about going forward with that report?
Oh, I think that's the best approach, and I would support that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And we don't need a motion or a second on that, as I understand it. So that'll just come back to us at the next meeting. Other questions or comments of commission members? Commission staff? Are we at the adjournment point?
The only thing, Mr. Chairman, remaining is other business. And I do see Mayor Brooks seeking acknowledgement, and all I had for other businesses is the next meeting date. My recommendation on that is it will be our normal spring meeting. And I would recommend that we poll the members at a later date as we see how things proceed with the General Assembly this year. I don't think we have the ability to set that date currently.
I agree. Mayor Brooks, I didn't catch you quick enough. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate just a moment of personal privilege. We've had a difficult couple of days in this new year, but I just wanted to say how good it is to see you, Mr. Chairman. That might be the best gift we have received thus far, is your presence. So on behalf of the commission, we're glad you're back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me back. All right, anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
See a motion from Mayor Brooks and a second from Chairman Lynn.
I see Chairman Lynn and Mayor Brooks both are on the adjournment. So if there's no opposition, then we'll be adjourned. Any opposition?